Emotions have their place. They do have their place.
Yeah,
we have to metastasize and resonate those internally for the course of whatever that time is. And then move forward.
Right.
Logically move forward. Probably with the wisdom of other people, but logically move forward as we make decisions out of the negative realities.
This is the Untamed Podcast, where only the few dare to go. We're building a community of adventurous high achievers who refuse to trade our dreams for comfortable mediocrity so that we can unleash our untamed potential. Could you be one of the untamed few? Now, your untamed hosts, Mark Lucas and Joel Fritz.
Joe, I don't know if you know this about actually my wife's job. It's pretty amazing. She actually works for a company, and for the most part, they own and manage amusement park all over the world. Roller coasters, rides, water parks.
I like roller coasters.
I love roller coasters. And we're a roller coaster family for sure. Okay. And as we know, any great roller coaster, there's great ups and then great drops and great downs.
Well, the good ones have really good downs.
And even the loops. But in these ups and downs in life, one thing that I've noticed about myself is that when I'm going into a down in life, as I enter that process of going down, I have a tendency, just like a lot of times in a roller coaster where you kind of grab onto that person's hand or grab onto that oh crap railing in front of you.
My palms are getting a little bit sweaty right now. I feel it.
I tend to grab onto my wife's hand and pull her into that negative reality or that big drop in life with me. And I think what happens in our lives is that we're going to have ups and downs every day. We're going to have to be able to process these ups and downs each and every day. But we've got to understand and walk with the untamed few today to be able to help them process these downs in life that we will all experience. Because the reality is that most of us, when we interact with people in the day, most of us, when we interact even on the screens of our phones, of social media and the interactions we get there throughout the day, people share only the ups. They share their highlight reels. Yeah. So we're all, hands are up, we're having a great time, we're going up, everybody's happy, snap a picture, share a story, all the things. Yeah. But nobody really communicates with you when it comes to, I've got a down, I'm really down, and I'm headed down, and here's the negative reality that I'm going into.
And that's why this conversation that we're going to have is important. So we want to talk about how to deal with the negative realities that you're going to face in life. And that's what this whole conversation is going to be shaped around. We've got 4 different things that you're going to be able to look at and figure out how to process a framework, if you would, of how to process through and deal with negative realities, because we know negative realities are going to come. And it is like that roller coaster. But the thing is, I think in our minds, oftentimes we are going, no, we're not ticking up that big hill with the clink, 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 clink. That's not going to come, or we ignore it until it's right in front of us. And honestly, that's just not a good way to deal with it. We really do have to accept the reality that it's not a matter of if negative realities will come, but when they will come and what we're going to do about it. So I want to try something with you. Is that okay?
Yeah. I mean, I'm scared a little bit, but yes.
You'll live through it. Trust me, okay?
Am I going to be going down in the roller coaster right now?
No, this part right now is the clink,
it's
clink,
the up,
clink,
okay.
Up. Yeah,
it's the up.
Right. And then I'll drop you off the backside.
Okay.
But right now,
drop me off the backside. Here we go.
All right. So let's just say we haven't seen each other in a long time. We have a decent relationship. We've met a few times over the years in career. And now we're meeting up again. We've crossed paths, and this is what this conversation looks like.
Great. This is like role playing. I love it.
Hey, Mark.
Hey, Joel. How are you?
How you been?
You're a little grayer than last time I saw
you. I appreciate it.
But you're looking good, though.
Ask me something about myself, just as a prompt.
How are you doing?
I just lost my job.
Wow.
Yeah. I know.
I'm having a good day.
I don't think
you don't even know how to process that. Like,
what do we do in that situation? This is why hopefully this podcast means something to you, because you're not having this conversation with the people that you meet up with.
Yeah.
I mean, in fact, a lot of times, there are movies made about people who lose their job and they don't want to tell their spouse, right? Yeah. There are all these different layers of how we process negative realities. Now, that's losing your job. This illustration that we're using right now, what about a sick parent, a sick child? What about realities of dealing with difficult health and physical drawbacks every single day of our lives? Yeah. I mean, what about when a significant relationship ends? I mean, these are things that happen all the time in people's lives, and yet it's not something that we want to talk about. It's surely not something that we're going to lead in conversation with. And so if we don't have a place to process through this, how are we going to deal with these negative realities in a healthy way?
Yeah, and I think it's a great conversation, because again, we just showed you guys just the awkwardness that you and I had in that quick exchange. And the reality is, in this first step, because we're giving 4 steps, in this first step, we have to assess. Like you just said, the first step is to assess that every single day, you and I and the beautiful tribe and audience that's with us here today, they're going to experience some type of negative reality. Right. It might not be a massive speed bump in their life, but it's going to be a little speed bump that you're going to have today. There's going to be a little negative reality. And that's just the truth. So I think we have to wake up each and every morning to be able to have the frame of reference in mind to say, today I'm going to experience a negative reality. I have to assess that. I have to anticipate that. I have to have an awareness of that. Right. And I've got to, in the process of assessing that, I've got to ask myself, okay, this is going to happen today. And when this does happen today, okay, kind of walk through, and this, we're going to get into the different 4 steps, but you got to kind of think through, what are you going to do in those moments? Right. What's going to happen next? And that's where we're going to go in the other steps. But I think even just recognizing and having the reality as you assess, you're going to have a negative reality today. It might be minor. It could be major. We hope it's not major. But the reality is, as we walk in this life, one of the things that I've realized in the messes of my life, in the negative realities of my life, I sometimes look back. Actually, oftentimes I look back and I actually, believe it or not, there's a bit of even rejoicing and a bit of thankfulness that I went through that negative reality, because as I process and look back in the rearview mirror of my life, I realize the growth, the inside out growth. I realize the character development. I realize that I am a better man. Right. And that's not just a great Pearl Jam song. I'm a better man because of what I went through. So I think even as you assess that first step in knowing you're going to have a negative reality, you got to realize that as we handle it well, as we mature and grow through it, and we process it well in these 4 steps, right, there is, and I can almost promise and guarantee, there is growth on the other side. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes growth we don't want is probably one of the biggest realities that we want to help people face, is that there's going to be growth, but this type of growth, maybe it's some of the biggest growth that we'll experience in our entire life, but it's not necessarily growth that we want. It's growth that we would avoid if at all possible. Growth that we would avoid, like pay any amount of money to avoid. Yeah. And so that's that reality. And so it brings us to a place where we're assessing, is this something that's going to happen to us? And we're answering yes, which moves to acceptance. And we have been using these 4 A's. And we go assess your situation, accept the current reality, and then aim for where you want to go, and then act upon that, right? So in these, we use that as a little bit of a framework heading into these 4 things that we're talking about. So we're going to assess, and then we're going to accept, right? So we've got to accept this reality. So bad things are going to happen. And you've mentioned a little bit about that. So since bad things are going to happen, this is kind of the second step. We start asking the question, what are we going to do about it, right? So we can move from a place where we've assessed and now we're accepting. And then we were moving into a place of, okay, well, what can I do? What can I do about it? You know, what are my options? And that's where we'll get into the last two things that are going to be very, very helpful in that. But when we're asking, what can I do about it? You have to recognize that this thing has potential to be good. And at the same time, bad is bad. And when we're processing through a negative thing, I mean, if you think about a health or sickness thing, it may not get better. And that's probably one of the most difficult parts about the acceptance, is that we want to live in a reality where, is this the ultimate truth or is this not the ultimate truth? And it's maybe a little bit easier for me to talk about maybe the loss of a job, because it feels less permanent in some ways. But there's this negative, let me think here. What's the best way to say it? We have to come into a place where we embrace the reality, okay, in this situation, that this has happened and there may or may not be something that we can do about it at this point. Because that's the question we're asking in step 2. Is there something I do about it? What can I do about it? And if there is something you could do about it, let's say you lost your job and it was because you did something specific, and you can ditch your ego, or you can go and almost repair the situation. Well, you should go and repair the situation if you can. But if you can't repair the situation, then it may be the moment that you have to come to the reality that what's done is done. And that is a hard thing for us to do, because it's almost like, at that point, are we admitting failure? But Mark, there's a distinct, and you and I know this so well, and we want people to be able to process with us in this moment. We know so well that there's a distinct difference between saying, admitting failure, because that's what it feels like when you say, oh, no, it's over, it's done, this is my current reality. That feels like an admission of failure, right? But there's a distinct difference between admitting failure and recognizing the current reality, the actual state of the current reality that you find yourself in.
Yeah. Well, that's really good. And I think I'll go on to that to say this. Let's go back to the situation of losing your job. So if you're in that place and you're accepting a negative reality right now, you lost your job. Okay. That's the reference point that we're using right now. That job that you lost, okay, we want you to assess, and then the next step is to accept. So you're accepting that you lost your job. And also accept and be real with yourself. This is the emotion that I'm feeling. Mm-hmm. So identify what that emotion is, okay? Process in thought that emotion. Don't react at a place of being highly emotional. Mm-hmm. That never turns out well. But process. Don't push to the side and discredit that you have emotions. Mm-hmm. So let's say, again, I'll just throw one emotion out. I lost the job, okay? I'm right now feeling completely disheartened.
Yeah.
I'm feeling distraught. I'm feeling destroyed.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, find that emotion, be real with it, accept that emotion. Process that place of that emotion. But as you process that emotion, know before you take steps forward, mm-hmm. you've got to have a good, healthy frame of mind to be able to move forward. Because what happens often when we fail in this, dealing with negative realities, is that, again, we start to identify that we put some type of name tag on ourselves. Hi, my name is Mark. I lost my job. Mm-hmm. And it becomes a part of this identity piece that we carry around as a label.
Right.
And when we do that, Joel, when we do that, Untamed Few, that's the worst mindset place that we could allow ourselves to become, because we quickly identify with the negative reality that has become our identity. We've got to get away from that. We've got to break free from that. And yet, that's hard. Our tendencies are to fixate on the negative reality that's right in front of us.
Right.
And that's what we see, and that's what we're vacillating on. But we cannot allow our mind and our emotions to get so wrapped up in thinking that now is our identity.
Right. And
we got to push ourselves forward.
It's almost like a layers of identity too, because what we have a tendency to do when emotion is high, it's causing us to want to bring that identity to the front, right? Almost like when we said hello in our, our totally fake exchange that we
very
had
fake and awkward,
right? An awkward exchange, and you're like, "Well, how are things going? I lost my job, right?" Is that who you are?
Right.
It's a moment, it's an experience that you've had. Now, things that do shape your identity a little bit more if you've lost a child.
Yeah.
You know, and you and I have dealt with people in that situation.
Right.
Now that is going to shape your identity and be a part of who you are. In fact, you're going to have a connection with people who have experienced that other people just can't fully understand and comprehend. So that's an identity shaper. Losing your job does shape your identity, but it is not who you are, right? And that's what you're saying. It's a distinct difference between who I am, my primary identity, and how this shapes the experience of my life and makes me who I am. This is going to be something that's going to knock rough edges off of you, sharpen you, cause you to grow in ways that you didn't want to grow, these challenges that we face. But it doesn't mean the negative reality is who you are. That's your choice to choose that or not, which is why step 3 is process, like you had mentioned. And we're going to process the emotion that we're having in order that we can make choices about that in just a second. So I want to recap just real quick on the 4 that we're going through, because we're on the 3rd and we're going to do the 4th in just a second. We're going to assess and accept, right? And then we're going to ask, what can we do about it? And then we're going to process our emotions, because the emotions are critical on how we handle those, because otherwise the emotions are going to speak everything at those moments. You know, that's going to be who I am.
Right.
Are all based on emotions. And then the decisions that I make then will fall in line behind those emotions. And that doesn't, I mean, honestly, the decisions that we would make in emotion are not necessarily the best decisions for us at that given time. And the 4th one that we're going to talk about is focusing on what we can control.
Yep.
So yes, we want to be careful not to make decisions just based on emotion, but we want to understand exactly where we're at and what we're doing about it every step of the way.
Yeah, that's really good. Well, as we go back a little bit more, maybe into the 3rd, to process the emotions. And you're right, I did jump the gun a little bit and gave the 3rd, and that's good. I'm glad you recapped it again.
I liked it. I want to just make sure everybody can follow with us.
I'm making sure I'm following with this too. So in that 3rd one, as we process the emotions, here's a visual that I've given myself, and I've given a handful of guys over the years as we have the opportunity to be able to consult and advise men as they want to obviously grow and have personal development. In this process of emotions, there's typically 2 categories of men. There's more than 2 categories, but broadly there's 2 categories of men. So predominantly, the majority of men that we interact with are in a category where they don't really give much stock or credit to emotions.
Sure.
We talked about the core 4 not too long ago, and how limited our vocabulary is with the few emotions that we really have. And
what are those 4
I
again?
promise you're not right now one of those emotions, because I'd be scared. But we look at the core 4, and then we realize there's a category over here that says, okay, most guys are really very anemic in understanding that they really even have many emotions. And they might be very angry in this illustration. Normally, we talked about the job loss as the example we're giving right now. But let's even go to the place of having somebody that is someone you love that's going through a chronic illness. You're going to live in a place. I would live in a place of being angry. Angry at God, angry at the situation, just angry, okay?
Right.
So you're going to process that you're going to be in that place, okay? One of the core 4 emotions, or one of those emotions. Then there's another category of a guy over here that maybe is very highly emotionally charged, and he is very in touch with his emotions, and maybe he hasn't experienced 4, maybe he's experienced 400, and he has much more vocabulary. So wherever you are in this illustration, it's a good illustration. I think one of the things that we have to realize in this example is that if there's a school bus, and the school bus is going down the road, okay? There's 2 scenarios. They're both not great. The first scenario is this. Emotions we've pushed out, we almost completely discredit that emotions are real. And the emotion little emoji guy is running outside the school bus, and he's banging on the door trying to get in. But the driver of the school bus is logic, and he's reason, and he's just driving. He's completely pushed away emotions. I don't even think about emotions. It's just logic and reason, and he's driving, okay? Then there's the other illustration, which is the reverse. Emotions are driving the school bus, and they're veering left and right and all over the place, and logic is running outside, tapping on the door. Either place, it's dangerous. But we have to know that emotions when we process them, they were never meant to drive the school bus of thought, the school bus of decision.
Right.
They were never meant to do that. But logic and reason and truth and emotions all have their place in that school bus, but definitely emotions isn't driving for sure. Logic and reasoning and truth can absolutely have a place of being the driver in that school bus, but you can't discredit the emotion. So I think the illustration is really just important to know that emotions have their place. They do have their place.
Yeah,
we have to metastasize and resonate those internally for the course of whatever that time is, and then move forward.
Right.
Logically move forward, probably with the wisdom of other people, but logically move forward as we make decisions out of the negative realities.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. And I mean, that's so one of the distinct things about being human is the emotional range and experience that we have. And it's critical. It's part of the human experience. So what we do with it, and you illustrated that very well. What I want to add to that is just a simple thing that when something happens to us, we have this moment where we actually have choice as well. And so we have the choice to, you think about the school bus, we have the choice to let the emotions drive. And that's what we have to be careful of, because if we let the emotions drive at that moment, then everything's going to go crazy. But there are circumstances where we need to let those emotions drive in a controlled environment, you know, in a controlled
parking
course,
lot.
like the parking lot, whatever it is, like the bumper, the bumper cars.
That's true.
Because we know things are going to get crazy. Yeah. So we don't want our crazy to spill out onto everybody else. We need to, and this is a case for the untamed few. I mean, truly, you need your few, because you need those people that you can go and you can let that rip. And if you don't have that, I mean, what are you going to do with those emotions? They're real. You're just going to bottle them up. I mean, that is where we get that sense of, shaking up a can of soda or something and popping the lid, and it just goes everywhere because the pressure just builds and builds and builds, and you have to be able to release that. These emotions are real. They're generated by something real. We have to process and do something with them and then decide what kind of decisions we're going to make. So we do have a choice in the midst of it. What are we going to do with the circumstance that we find ourselves in? How are we going to let our emotions interact? And also, how are we going to process and release those emotions? What are we going to do? Because all of it's a very healthy human reality, and it's all about handling it well. And that's what we're trying to talk through right now. So that next step, number 4, is critical, because it's focus on what you can control. And this is something I think half the people out there that have been in leadership have read Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Beautiful book.
So I'm absolutely stealing this whole concept because it was decades ago that I read this, and it just resonates, and it will continue to resonate for, I'm sure, centuries, right? I don't even remember or know where he got it, but it's this idea that a person that is effective in leadership, a high-performing individual, they get up in the morning and they're not asking questions around how can I solve the world, problems that I have no control over. They're asking, how can I solve problems that are related to things that I actually have control over? And that's a very hard thing to do in a circumstance where you can't go back and undo what's been done. Yeah. Because usually these negative realities, Mark, are realities that can't be undone. So now we have this hard task after we've processed our emotions to start making decisions of what we're going to do about it. And if we start making decisions to spend all of our time trying to undo things that can't be undone, we're going to spin our wheels. It's going to take months. It's going to take years. People around us are going to get hurt. We may erode wonderful and good things in our own lives that we don't want to erode because we have no control and we're spun out on those emotions.
It's so good. And I'll even actually steal another one of Stephen Covey's 7 Habits for Highly Effective People. Steal it. Because there's some great habits in that book. In this process, and again, we've talked a lot about a negative reality, accepting it, understanding there's got to be a step where we kind of walk through after we accept and we kind of achieve what we're looking for, and we aim at what we're looking for, then we process what we're looking at. When we process, and now we go into the step of what we can control, the things we can control. I think this step is really helpful for me, and it's helpful for guys, because the step says this: begin with the end in mind. So as you truly process where you want to go from the negative reality, like you've processed the emotion long enough, okay, you're ready to move forward, okay? Then you begin probably with the counsel of a few others, okay? You begin, and your family in that counsel, whatever that counsel looks like, colleagues, family, friends, a combination. You begin to process now, where is the new reality of where I want to go? And when you begin with the end in mind, what happens is you begin to aim and focus on and have control over the destination of where you want to go. Because too often, and we just referred to this earlier, too often when we kind of wallow in the place of, again, back to the job loss, hi, my name is Mark, I lost my job. Too often what happens is we focus too much on the rearview mirror, and all we can look at is the negative reality that's happened behind us. No matter how long the time has gone, maybe it's been months, maybe it's been a quarter of time, a year. We just tend to fixate on the negative reality and look in the rearview mirror. Stephen Covey says, begin with the end of the mind. So when you begin with the end in mind, you're looking forward. And you're focused on controlling where you're headed. You're setting a path. We know the reality. Now you're clear. This is the preferred future. This is where I want to go. And now you begin to take, what's the first step? What's the second step? What's the third step? And now you experience some victory. Now you experience a few wins in that process. Now you start to see some growth. Now you start to see some healthy fruit and character development. And beautiful things begin to happen. And I think that's a hard thing to do, but an imperative thing to do is to begin with the end in mind. That's a beautiful step that also comes, Stephen Covey.
Oh, it's so good, man. And it's so good. Now you're really hitting on our tendency to fixate on the negative. And so as you were talking, it just feels like this is where the spectrum starts to open up of how broad it can be between one negative circumstance and another type of negative circumstance. I mean, the loss of a child or a terminal illness is so different than the loss of when a realtor like my wife, might lose a $15,000 deal or something like that. I mean, these are different ends of the spectrum. Like if you failed at a venture in your business, you need to build that into your psyche, business leader. It's like, that if you're trying hard stuff that you're going to fail, and you need to become tempered to failure. Losing a child is going to require years of healing, right? These are two negative realities that people face all the time. And yet we have to figure out where they fall within this broad spectrum so that we can handle them correctly. And that's why we're trying to dish out this framework so that we don't become a person that goes, I just lost this contract and it doesn't feel good. And that's all we can think about. And we lose time with our family. And all we could think about is like, oh, how can I fix this problem at work? How can I fix it? And we're fixated on that. And we're on vacation because it's 4th of July. And this is our 1 week. And hey, don't miss the vacation podcast, or go back to it, I should say, because it was dropped a few weeks ago. And, we miss this opportunity to be with our family. That fixation is just such a killer in our lives because we want to be able to have successful, robust relationships. So we can't get fixated on those things. We have to figure out a way out. We have to begin with the end in mind. But the beginning with the end in mind looks very different for somebody who has experienced a negative reality like that, or is dealing with a new physical limitation that they've encountered in their life, and they're forced to ask questions like, am I going to be able to continue to do the same things that I was doing before? Those are different things, but they go through the same process, right? You have to assess and accept, and then you have to move forward from there, and you have to start asking, what can I do about it? And once you've asked what can I do about it, then you start processing through all the emotions, and then you ask, what can I control? And when the reality is that you can't control the circumstance, you can't bring somebody back, you can't undo the circumstances you find yourself in, the deal's not going to come back, then you soberly start to move forward. And for people who have experienced loss, it means healing, right? They can start to take those steps into healing. For people who lost the deal, they can realize that's just a part of your job. How can I process that better so that I don't lose time in other areas and things like that? And I get so excited because this is the point. We're all going to deal with hard things. So what are we going to do about it?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. And again, I'll even bring up a reference. Somebody who was very close to me and is in a very difficult situation right now. She just lost her husband to cancer. And she just found out within weeks of him dying that she has breast cancer.
Wow.
So what I'm not saying, and you know this, but I'll just be clear, what I'm not saying is that I would never tell that person. Never tell that person, hey, listen, don't look in the rearview mirror. She will always look in the rearview mirror her entire life.
Yeah, that's right.
You can't have amnesia and just forget that. Yeah. That's going to be a part of her. When you go to that severity of a negative reality, absolutely. But with her, we're praying and processing together in the times that we do connect over the phone to be able to say, okay, what is a micro step forward? What is a micro step forward in the process of healing? What is a micro step forward in the process of you connecting with other widows that are grieving? Yeah. What is a micro step forward in you connecting in other cancer groups right now for you to feel like you're not alone? Right. Those are some of the steps that we're walking through. Yeah. So obviously there are some situations, I think a job loss, I think for the most part, in the process of me losing jobs, I can never look again in the rearview mirror.
You don't want to.
Because I'm just looking forward. And then when God leads me to what's next, then I'm so excited to be in that next spot. I've kind of, for the most part, don't even think about looking in the rearview mirror. About it. So it depends on where you are in the negative realities. But
100%.
There's always a micro step forward.
Always.
There's always, I'm not saying.
And there's also an end in mind.
There's always an end in mind. So even for this individual that I care a lot about, for her, there is an end in mind.
That's right.
There is.
That's right.
I don't know exactly what that is, but she's taking baby steps, and there's people around her that care about her. They're giving her counsel to take baby steps forward.
Right. Sometimes I just couldn't help this, but as you're talking about in that circumstance, looking in the rearview mirror, sometimes it is just the first steps of beginning to look out the windshield again, to look forward, to even believe that there's a future. Yeah. I mean, because it feels like your whole life has been lived already in those moments. But to begin to realize that there is a future again, that's why you need a support group around you. You need people that care about you and love you and can walk with you at the pace that you need to walk at in those circumstances. But dealing with negative realities is incredibly difficult, whether they're small, and maybe it's the first time that you're dealing with, the loss of a contract or a criticism from your boss or a failed venture, whatever it is. It's hard at the time. But as we mature, we begin to move through these steps, and then we begin to understand how to deal with negative circumstances. And then we realize negative circumstances are a part of life. And one of the worst things that we can do is ignore that reality and act like negative circumstances aren't a part of life. It's not about if, it's about when and how we deal with it. Yeah. So I feel like I should recap. Is there anything else you want to say? Because I was going to recap. And
just a quick visual.
Go ahead.
And then recap. I think as we actually have our feet upon this rug right now, it just dawned on me, this visual. I heard this years ago. And when you think about a Persian rug, this is not a Persian rug because I can't afford one. But when you think about a Persian rug, you think about the intricacies. I'll get that word out. It's a fancy word. Intricacies.
It's fun watching you try and say it.
Even twice stumbling. When you flip one of those Persian rugs over on the underside, it is just a mash of weird colors that don't have any order or any sense to it. Like it just looks like somebody threw up a bunch of color on the underbelly of a Persian rug.
Like Pollock.
And yet, the negative realities, that's the viewpoint and the perspective that we have when we first encounter a negative reality. Yeah. It's gross. It's messy. It doesn't make sense to us. We have all these wrestlings of, why God? Why is this happening? Why am I going through this? We have all this inner dialogue, and yet over the process of beginning with the end in mind and taking the steps that you're going to refine here in a second with us, God will flip in his timing that rug back on the front side to see the order to see how everything has a part and there is order in the mess to become a beautiful masterpiece that we can begin to take one step forward each and every day.
Yeah.
And whenever I face a really hard negative reality, I just remind myself that I'm looking at a different vantage point of the mess in front of me.
Yeah.
And yet God has this great aerial shot to see all the order, because he can bring order out of chaos, and he does bring order out of chaos. And I've got to give myself some peace of mind to know that and trust him in that process too.
Yeah. Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Untamed Few, let me recap for you. First with just kind of an exhortation. Don't forget that you're going to face negative realities in your life. Don't forget it. Realize it's going to happen. And don't try and brush over the negative realities or ignore them. Process through them, because they have the extreme potential to generate growth in your life. In fact, these things that we're talking about today may be the biggest growers of you as a human being in your character, anything else, but they're the very things that we want to avoid more than anything else. So here's your framework. Hit these head on by assessing when a negative reality enters your life. Assess and accept the realistic situation. Put yourself in it and start to say, is this real? Is this my circumstance? And if it is, then begin to embrace it. And as you embrace it, then you're going to say, what can I do about this? And then as you ask, is there something that I can do about it? Can I go back and fix it? Is there a repair that I need to be made? You go through that. Is there something I can do about it? Then you process your emotions, because you have the decisions of how you're going to end up controlling your emotions. You don't let the emotions drive the bus. And finally, you ask, or you focus on, what is it that I can control, right? Focus on the things you can control, not the things that you can't control. And that'll walk you through it, especially if you have good people around you.
It's great. Thanks, Untamed Few.
Yeah, we'll see you next time.
If this episode sparked something in you, please subscribe and even share it with someone who's ready to take their life to the next level. We're always on the hunt for men who are looking to become untamed and release their untamed potential. Also, if you found value in this conversation, then please rate the podcast and leave a comment. It makes a huge impact in building our community. We'll see you next time when the adventure continues, or maybe when yours begins.